So the government announced some fairly major changes in regards to SSP. So now, instead of being payable from workday 4 or from sick day 4, it's now payable from the first day of sickness. So these rules affect all employers with 250 or less staff and come into effect on the 13th of March 2020. So SSP is fully payable from days 1 to 14 for all people who stay at home and cannot work. And that includes both those employees who are sick and have coronavirus and who can't work, and those who are forced to self-isolate because somebody in their house has coronavirus and can't work. So it's really important that you maintain the sick records, because at the moment most payroll softwares don't have the facilities within them to account for the 14 days worth of SSP. It's just too early. So a fit note, a typical fit note that we would normally have to get from a doctor, in this instance is not required. What is required or is optional, if it's required by the employer, not necessarily by the state. So what we mean by that is if the employer requires a fit note or its equivalent called an isolation notice to pay that SSP, then they can insist the employee gets an isolation note. Now, you don't have to leave the house to get an isolation note now. You can either find one on 111 online if you're the person who is sick and you have the coronavirus symptoms. You go and get the isolation notice from 111 online. If you're staying at home with someone who has those symptoms, you can get the isolation notice. It's a slightly different format from NHS online. Fill in the form online, download it, save it as a PDF, and then send it to your employer as evidence for your SSP. Now, if you're the employer, you can top that pay up with company sick pay if that's what your company sick pay policy is. If you don't, then all you need to pay your employee is the $94.25 SSP per week. Now, typically SSP is paid by the employer, but now under the coronavirus rules, we are allowed to reclaim that amount from the government, and that's going to be paid by the government. Now, the rebate scheme hasn't yet been defined, hasn't been set up, so we know we can claim it back. We just don't know how to do it just yet. So the claims process is to be confirmed. Now, the challenge for an ordinary employee is how on earth to live on $94.25 a week SSP. So that's the current rate. There's a lot of lobbying and a lot of people challenging this amount with the government, because it's just not enough for an ordinary family, an ordinary person to live on. So they're looking at, what's available in terms of universal credits, working tax credits, or ESA, which is the employment support allowance, to see what changes need to be made to the system to support people. There are other initiatives for self-employed persons who are not sick, and workers who are not sick and who are furloughed at home, but I'll cover those in different videos.